Well, there's been another shooting involving the Mormons again. This time, a Mormon church uh, in uh, in Michigan. But that's not why I'm doing this upload. I'll come to that story in a minute. I think it's yet another psyop. It's a diversion. If they want to take people's minds off the Charlie Kirk thing, so they create yet another uh, disturbance. Mormons are not a Christian group either. Some people think they are, but they're not. Anyway, this is a guy called George Thomas Stahel Farmer. Stahel, it's an unusual name, isn't it? And he's the son of Michael Farmer, Baron Farmer. And he is, in particular, the husband of someone that I admire a lot, but have questions about, Candace Owens. Now, Candace Owens is quite articulate on the Israel issue. And it's quite extraordinary because she is one of the only high profile people on YouTube with opinions like that who is allowed to publish to millions. She is not the same as some. I mean, I know I had a couple of thousand followers at one point on my YouTube channel, and because I was a completely independent person, completely independent, not saying I was always right, but I was unmonetized and completely independent. And the powers that be had no trouble in getting rid of me. Now, you might say that Candace Owen is too big to fail, but although 95% of what she says is very, very factual, I'm a bit concerned about the 5% that it's not. I mean, for example, she decided to become a Catholic, which I find quite odd. I mean, she should know Catholic churches, links to child abuse and stuff like that. Are Catholics really Christians? I mean, Christian denominations like to point fingers at each other, claiming that they're the ones with the truth and all the rest of it. Now, let's go back to George Farmer. This is the guy who married Candace Owens in 2019. Now, he was educated at Oxford, which I would say is a red flag. And he was also a member of the Bullingdon Club, which in my opinion is a mega red flag. Other people who've been in the Bullingdon Club are Boris Johnson, David Cameron, I think the Radek Sikorski, the Polish, ex-Polish Prime Minister or something. So, considering Candace Owens' opinions, it seems a bit odd that George Farmer would be approving of Candace's opinions, right? Now let's have a look at George Farmer's father, Michael Stahel Farmer, Baron Farmer. He's a Catholic. David Farmer. Yes. 3 children. A born-again Christian. Now, here we have the problem. Not only is his son a member of Bullingdon Club, which is a UK version of Skull and Bones, he's also the chairman and trustee of the Council of Christian and Jews. So he's a good guy. He's a good guy, isn't he? Now, apart from being incredibly rich, he's also a big, now, anti-Semitism in Israel. Yes. I work with many Jewish people. Yes. Kindness and thoughtfulness from Jewish friends. Yes. A bulwark against anti-Semitism. And he seems incredibly blasé about what's going on Gaza. Israel has little option but to fight its enemy in tunnels under key infrastructure. Of course, we cannot forget that they have been forced to prosecute this war. Candace Owens' father-in-law defends Israel. Oh. Reacts to anti-Semitic comments. anti-Semitic comments. Times of India. India's very much under the Jewish thumb, unfortunately. Candace Owens descent into conspiracy, anti-Semitism. A family member speaks out. So they're all coming to the aid of Israel here, aren't they? So it could easily be that Candace's husband doesn't agree with his father. I personally think Israel's behaviour is absolutely, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the right word. Disgusting, obnoxious, satanic. I can't quite think of a combination. I mean, it would take about 20 words from the thesaurus to sum it up. I don't know how anybody, any decent person, could possibly justify what they're doing, and it could not even be justified, even if, and it's not true, even if exactly Israel's version of what happened on October the 7th is completely and utterly true. It would still be completely evil. Completely evil. Right. So I don't have much, I have no respect whatsoever for this Michael Farmer, Baron Farmer, no respect for him at all. And I'm also suspicious of his son, because bearing in mind his wife's opinions, right? So, I mean, is Candace Owens authentic? Does she sometimes hold fire? Does she occasionally deliberately get it wrong? You know, I think it's fair to say that if you want to have a major presence online, you have to go along with at least some of the shit. For example, you know, there's a guy I saw on a YouTube video, and he was condemning Israel, and then saying, oh yeah, and you can't do what Bin Laden did, kind of thing. And I thought to myself, well, so anybody who's done any genuine independent research into this must know, or should know, that Israel did 9/11, right? It was them. The Israelis did it. Yes, they managed to trick other people, or most people, into thinking it was Muslims. They managed to get the West to attack, because basically the United States is Israel's unpaid guard. It's like being a little midget at school, and you've got this big fucking heavily armed thug, this stupid big heavily armed moron who's gonna beat up or anyone who gets in your way, and therefore everyone has to be frightened of you because you're a nasty little thug. You're a nasty little boy, but you've managed to have this big ignorant thug at your disposal. So America's the big ignorant thug that can always be wheeled on by Israel. Every time they have a problem, they make sure that. And another thing is, Israel says things like, yeah, we're your only friend in the Middle East. Yeah, but hold on. Israel was created America's enemies. So America wouldn't have these enemies except for the fact that it supports Israel. It's basically do whatever Israel wants. I really don't think this is good for Jews. You know, I mean, you know, okay, so they always seem to be able to get away with it, but the actual contempt these people have among anyone who's got any human dignity is going to get worse. I mean, Jews like to blame anti-Semitism for the reason they're disliked. I think genocide might be an explanation. Genocide, arrogance, entitlement, grifting. I mean, we're talking about the world's biggest grifters. And even the money that the Americans give to the Palestinians, which is a tiny fraction of what they give to the Jews, or what they give to Egypt and other countries, that's basically just to bribe them off on behalf of Israel. So for sure, the vast majority of US aid is given to Israel, or on Israel's behalf. i.e. bribe governments in Egypt to make sure they don't get involved. I mean, Egypt has done nothing. I mean, Egypt's got like 100 million people, and they've done nothing to help the Palestinians. Nothing. Nothing at all. So anyway, I think it's very interesting that Candace Owens' father-in-law is a militant Zionist and an apologist for genocide. I also think it's notable that he's a Catholic. People like to pretend that the Catholic Church has opposed Israel's policies. It hasn't. It really hasn't. Secular people from Southern Europe who are nominally Catholic often oppose Israel's actions, but the Catholic Church could easily take action against Israel, and also because it has to be said there are significant Palestinian Christian minority which doesn't differ on any essential points with Palestinian Muslims. Right? Palestinian Muslims and Palestinian Christians both suffer under Israeli policies. So I just thought you'd like to know that. Also, another thing that's interesting is that, for example, Erica Kirk, her father was involved in arms dealing with Israel. So Erica Kirk, her it's similar to George Farmer. She seems to have links to the wrong people. And of course, now in Britain we have this referendum. We have a 2.5 million people already voted against ID cards in a petition. The ID cards are going to be manufactured. Larry Ellison, who's Jewish, has been whining and dining and 69ing Tony Blair, who's one of the most greedy, unprincipled shits in human history. And in return for that investment, this is what they do. Whenever a politician, whenever a government, like in America, lots of recycled money, America gives Israel billions in aid, and then Israel uses some millions to bribe US politicians. And then these US politicians, in return for those bribes and donations, they then organize more aid for Israel, and they know that they'll get a bit of it back as donations. In the UK and in America, it's very, very easy to hide donations. So, for example, in the UK, Keir Starmer got a lot of money from Zionist groups, and meanwhile he likes people to imagine that he's actually pro-Palestinian. He really isn't. See, everything is done by deception. They put people in power, and of course, because people dislike Starmer, when Starmer appears to take a small action, a nominal cosmetic action in support of the Palestinian people, then people, because they dislike Starmer, they will also dislike the policy, even though it's one of the few policies that are actually decent, because they don't like anything about Starmer, and therefore if Starmer had a policy on not chopping babies' heads off or something, people would oppose that because it's Starmer's policy, you see. The plight of civilians in Gaza is also utterly appalling, but I see Israel as little option. I'm sorry, that's not good enough, Michael Farmer, Mr. Big Money, Mr. Multi-millionaire. It's not good enough. If I was his son, I would, you see, he's not going to, is he? Because, for example, if his son said, look, Dad, you're talking out your fucking arse, his son could disinherit you. And in such a way, everybody is kept in line because of money. They're kept in line because of money. And you can get people to do whatever you want if you've got money. Which is why in the UK, lots of money has been made available to people who will endorse the climate change lie. Lots and lots of money is given to people like that. And in that way, they're kept sweet. They're not going to question something if it benefits them financially, even though it's in the public's worst interest. All right, sir. Thank you very much for your time.